walk with me. And as we wander down the crowded street, even if we're shuffling our feet, you make me never want to miss a beat. We're meant to be. And if you lie with me under the sycamore tree, whether we're high or low, there's nowhere else I want to go. Hold my hand, fall in love with footprints in the sand, and kiss each other while we watch the band. And everyone who knows us understands we're meant to be. And if you lie with me under the sycamore tree, whether we're high or low, there's nowhere else I want to go. So walk with me as we wander down the crowded street. Even if we're shuffling our feet, you make me never want to miss a beat, never miss a beat. And if you lie with me under the sycamore tree, whether we're high or low, nowhere else I want to go. And if you lie with me under the sycamore tree, whether we're high or low, nowhere else I want to go. So walk with me.
All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's City of Cedar Falls Committee of the Whole meeting for Monday, January 5th. I will call this meeting to order. Happy New Year. And Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Schultz.
Here.
Latta.
Here.
Nago.
Here.
Hallbaker.
Here.
Fairbanks.
Here.
Chrisman. Here. Dunn.
Here.
All members present, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And we will just move on to item number 1, Human Rights Commission Annual Report, I believe being presented by Commissioner T.W. Ingham. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All right. Thank you for allowing me to be the first voice here in 2026. It can only go up from here.
It's an honor.
All right. So we will present our annual report for fiscal year 2025. We will go to page 3 of the narrative summary. I will offer a disclaimer as of fiscal year 2026. New law language and topics we can discuss took effect. That was not in effect for fiscal year 2025, so the events, topics, and items we discussed and may be mentioned in this report are no longer applicable and may not occur in the future, but in this report, they still occurred. So I'm going to read through the narrative summary. I will then touch on other topics, and I'll refer to those pages as we go along. Most things, such as our committee information, our mission statements, philosophies, have not changed much over the years, so I don't feel the need to touch on those specifically. Mainly our narrative summary, budget, and then other items specific to fiscal year 2025. So, starting with our narrative summary on page 3, fiscal year 2025, July 1st of 24 through June 30th of 25 was a year of meeting challenges, overcoming obstacles, and creating a base of advocacy on behalf of our citizens for the Human Rights Commission. In October of 2024, the Human Rights Commission amended its bylaws to reduce the number of required commissioners serving to 9 from its previous staffing of 11. This change provides the HRC the ability to serve the city and meeting quorum more efficiently, holding committee meetings with less scheduling conflict, and providing a faster response to complaints. There were 2 commissioners who left the HRC within fiscal year 2025. The HRC is grateful for their service to their community and wish to thank them specifically for their time with the commission. Those members include Sonia Bach and Dave Kivett, both of whom served for many years and whose institutional knowledge will be difficult to replace. The Cedar Falls HRC has utilized its resources as graciously provided by the taxpayers of the city of Cedar Falls to attend a conference held by Davenport, Iowa, presented by the League of Iowa Civil and Human Rights Commission Association. This 2-day conference was filled with educational presentations by state officials, including the Office of the Iowa State Assistant District Attorney General, as well as federal resources, including the Americans with Disabilities Association, the Equal Employment Opportunities Commission, the Environmental Protections Association, and the Department of Justice Community Relations Service. These materials, along with the connections and partnerships formed, have provided invaluable resources for the HRC to serve complainants in human rights issues they are facing, where previously the HRC may not have been able to provide assistance. In fiscal year 2025, the HRC hosted multiple events, including our annual meet and greet, Women's History Awards Night, Pride at the Hearst Center, and our annual summit. The HRC also participated in and attended events, including the Martin Luther King Jr. Dinner, Cedar Valley Pride Fest, and Human Rights Day in partnership with the Waterloo Civil Rights Commission. In February of 25, the Cedar Falls HRC hosted an event entitled the Hate Crimes Forum in response to hate speech, graffiti, and messages found in public spaces within this city. The forum was coordinated with the Department of Justice Community Relations Service, though with federal budget cuts and restrictions, their office was unable to attend. The HRC felt the event was important to the city. Through hard work by all commission members, the event was successfully provided in open space for area residents to hear from and speak directly with the Waterloo and Cedar Falls public safety officers, human rights commissioners, and community representatives with direct experience with discrimination based on their race, gender identity, sex, immigration status, and disability. This forum was an important event that allowed Cedar Valley citizens an opportunity to understand how their community will support them in the event of hate crimes or other discrimination based on protected status. We will move next to the annual complaint and concern information that is on page 7. As a reminder, the Commission no longer investigates human rights complaints as a city ordinance change in 2021. However, the HRC remains actively involved via education, advocacy, and resourcing human rights complaints in the community. Discrimination issues are received through the Advocacy Committee's designated email or phone line, or through the complaint form on the HRC's webpage. The Commission received a total of 9 complaints during fiscal year 25. The Cedar Falls HRC submitted 1 individual to the ICRC, now known as the IOCR, and the EEOC for a complaint involving disability and retaliation. The Cedar Falls HRC submitted 1 individual to the EEOC for a complaint involving race and retaliation. 1 complaint was referred to the appropriate service, the Housing Commission, as the HRC does not assist in complaints regarding housing per city ordinance and the cooperative agreement with the state of Iowa. A total of 5 complainants were unable to be reached to schedule an intake, thus services were not provided. 1 complaint was referred to the appropriate office, the Waterloo Civil Rights Commission, as the individual was a resident of and the concern occurred within the city of Waterloo at that time. For the fiscal 2025 budget, the general fund received from the city of Cedar Falls was $3,000. The Human Rights Commission spent $2,862.07. leaving dollars unspent of $137.93. Our annual summit income funds received was $1,253. We spent that total amount. Total for the fiscal year 2025 was $4,253. Dollars spent, $4,115.07, leaving dollars unspent, $137.93. Activities, events, training, and conferences. The approval of the fiscal year 2025 cooperative agreement. We attended the League of Civil and Human Rights Civil and Human Rights Association conference. We created and presented informative and inclusive promotions, including International Human Rights Day, Black History Month, Women's History Month, and the LGBTQIA plus Pride Month. We updated the Human Rights Commission webpage, participated in or hosted the following events. We were a vendor at the Cedar Valley Pride Fest, supported and attended the annual Martin Luther King Jr. banquet in Waterloo, held Women's History Month event in partnership with the Cedar Falls Public Library, including a presentation by the Cedar Valley Roller Derby team, the Push-Up Brawlers, and the recognition of 3 local women for their contributions to the Cedar Valley. And in June, we met with community members and expanded recruitment during our annual meet and greet. Listed below that are our commission members and our support staff. That is the conclusion of our presentation. Are there any questions for the fiscal year 25 annual report?
Thank you, DW. And any questions, conversation from the group? And Kelly, you got any online too? Just trying to remind myself to check with you.
I mean, I'll just say, I think I speak for everyone when I say thank you for the presentation. Thank you for your work. And I just appreciate that you have worked so hard to put the last few months. I know that Chair Ingham has been in council chambers, making sure that we all remember that the HRC is there for everyone as needed. So anyway, I just thank you for your work.
Thank you, Counselor.
That was kind of ditto on that. Thank you, TW. And just for clarification, maybe you are remaining as chair?
No, I was also going to, after this time, I was going to introduce our new chair,
Okay.
Crystal Waltz.
I
I presented the report. Generally, the report is given in December of the year, but due to scheduling, we needed to push until January. And since I wrote it all, and Crystal's been commissioner for 4 days, I felt it was more appropriate for me to give the presentation. But moving forward, she will provide the presentation for fiscal year 2026.
And I see you're on, though, until 2027, though.
Correct. Yes, my term expires in 2027.
Awesome.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we just third to include thanks to you and the team. A lot of great events the last year, but also I know a lot of working through a lot of changes at the state level. Got quite a few new commissioners, and so one more that we're approving tonight. So just appreciate all the work you're doing and all of those who have come on to keep doing the work and chart that path forward for the HRC for the city. So
Yes, thank you.
appreciate you guys.
Thank you. And our team will not be here for that meeting, so we just want to welcome Priscilla. It's been a long time coming, and we're extremely excited to have her on the commission. So thank you for all in advance for voting for her to be on the commission. Thank you, guys.
So, you guys as well.
Thank you.
All right, that moves us to item number 2, capital improvements program presentation. Jen, you do not have as nice of a tie.
Sparkly.
She is sparkly, though. That's true. You're very sparkly, Jen.
Well, it's going to be that exciting time of year, guys. We got CIP and budget. You know, this is exciting stuff. So, all right. So CIP. Just wanted to, just for everyone, for the presentation tonight, really just kind of do a high-level overview. Really just some introductory comments. We usually highlight a few projects. Just, I know for a lot of council persons, you already know about most of these projects, but it's really kind of for our viewing audience. Maybe they'd like to just hear, and we'd like to just point out at least a few that are kind of the big projects on the CIP. Also, tonight is the time that if you have questions about certain projects, you can sure ask. And I know that if it's specific to a department, obviously you might have someone else who might jump in to answer the question about the project. So Again, we'll just kind of jump in and just let me know if you have any questions. So, again, it's our 5-year capital improvements program, or CIP that we call it. And there are 224 projects on the CIP for a total of approximately $485 million. There's about 50 different funding sources. And you'll see that sources that are not city funds are designated with an asterisk, so that's about $129 million. But the sources that are city sources are about $356 million. So you will see most of it is from city sources. How we determine what's going to fund a project is really based a lot of times on legal restrictions, whether it's road use tax can only be used for, as it relates to our road construction, repair, and maintenance of those. General obligation debt, hotel motel taxes, so a lot of times they're driven by legal obligations. And then you'll see on a lot of the projects, and some of the projects we're going to talk about tonight is especially quality of life projects, there's usually a lot of different funding sources because it's sometimes harder to fund those, so we got to kind of use a lot of different sources to make those projects happen. So the CIP was developed based on direction received through the goal setting process. And just a reminder that the CIP is a planning document. It doesn't authorize or fund the projects. Funding of projects will be coordinated with the annual budget process. We also like to make note every year that really the actual authorization of the projects will usually come back to you in some form, whether it's a design contract, a construction contract, a 28E, a grant agreement, whatever. So again, the CIP really is more about a planning document. We always say in the document itself that the FY27 column is probably the most important column, just because that's what we're going to put in the budget here when you start hearing about budget stuff in February, where the 26 column is already happening. The other ones are planning, and a lot of times, as you know, things can change as a year goes on, but it's really that FY27 column that we'll use then to put in the budget. The CIP was drafted based on various goal-setting objectives. One of them is that we do try to issue replacement debt, but the council last year and this year talked about actually selling an approximate extra $500,000 for our GO bond sales. So you'll see that. You can see that they're about at $4.5 million for each of our years that we're trying to plan for. And again, why we do that is to try to have not these big spikes in our tax rate. We're trying to keep it level and not have a big project, and then it causes the tax rate to go up one year or may go down the next. Also, we know that it's important in terms of what are we doing for infrastructure maintenance. Also at goal setting, there was just some conversation about, are we going to use emergency reserve funds for a project? We just kind of highlighted what our TIF districts are for right now, and of course, a lot of discussion about our quality of life projects. You will also see when selling those that you'll see in the complete book that was in the packet is it does show that we're still only using about 7% of our debt capacity at this point. And just for those who may be listening, our debt capacity is based on 5% of our assessed valuation. So again, using a very low amount of our debt capacity currently, but we know that could change. So one of the things I did just want to go through is just maybe some of the changes since goal setting. So all of you received at goal setting your CIP packet, or in your packet a CIP, and it was preliminary at that point. Said that many times, probably during the thing, that it was just preliminary. But these are some things that were talked about at goal setting that then is reflected in the CIP you have for tonight. So one of those is the public safety building, the concept plans, and when I say public safety building, I mean the second station, is moving that up to 27, 28. I think based on goal setting discussion, we heard that maybe people would like to see at least what could be some ideas for that, how could conceptual plans look. So we did move that up a couple years just to kind of get that going. The housing needs assessment was removed, and it'll just be paid for out of our economic development budget. I think the mayor mentioned that kind of at one of the nights at goal setting about that might be doing that a little sooner than what we originally had on the CIP. Private funding for park amenities, I'll talk about this a little bit later too, but you may recall at goal setting, there was this discussion about private funding and how does it relate to quality of life projects, and our goal of trying to get some of that funded. But we also know with parks, maybe that makes sense sometimes, maybe it doesn't, but I think at goal setting, the council consensus was, hey, let's just put that private funding for park amenities kind of on a separate line on the CIP. And, you know, maybe the project itself is kind of what we would say is the base project, but if a neighborhood wanted to have more at a park that's near in their neighborhood, then maybe that's when they would fundraise and there would be an expectation for some of those extras. So we just kind of showed that as a separate line item now. On that preliminary was about a Winter Wonderland project, moved that to unmet, and that funding actually got moved to the specialty park implementation line item. Rec center, the actual building construction got moved to unmet, but, and really to see about those conceptual plans completed first. About, I know there was discussion at goal setting, what do we want to see about the rec center? What's the purpose? What's the goal of the rec center? And so I think it's, hey, let's just look at some conceptual plans about the current site, and then of course, we'll decide after that, I guess, what the next move is for the rec center. Did add a new line item for the multi-use facility study to FY27. Also, based on goal setting, we did take $600,000 of our emergency reserve that we were over in our fund balance of what our goal council policy is. We had extra funds in that, and so we did move that to the specialty park line item as well. And one of the big things, again, is that we knew with that preliminary CIP that there were still things not balanced from our lost and road use tax. It was still over. And that's just based on the current, you know, just still using lost money 100% for street repairs. So there were some streets that had to be moved to the unmet to balance out that lost and road use tax funding. So major project impacts. You know, I think the projects that probably really drove the CIP this year was, one, the Hearst Center, you know, that being priority. It does use GO dollars, so that can affect what other projects are happening. The other big thing was the Parks Master Plan implementation. We know that's a big goal of the council, and so how are we going to now take that plan and implement it? Green Hill and 58, that, you know, that did increase from last year a significant amount, so that has impact on how other streets are funding. And fire truck replacement. You know, those are large dollar items that we do have to kind of plan for as well, and for the most part uses GO dollars for those. That's the hard part. That's kind of what we have available to use for those large fire trucks. So again, just to kind of highlight maybe 10 projects or whatever, again, just there may be more major ones on the CIP, or maybe they're just ones we know maybe the public tends to have an interest in. But one of them just wanted to highlight was the Hearst Center, number 35 on the CIP. You'll see the timing on the CIP says 27 to 29 with a total project cost of $8.6 million. You'll see that put ones that are city sources are in bold, but you'll see that project is made up of private of $3 million, community foundation funds of $750,000, federal and state grants $500,000, gaming of $900,000, GO of $910,000, hotel motel of $140,000, general fund savings of $600,000, culture improvement funds of $229,000, and capital projects of $1.5 million. So a little bit on the project, obviously working on the visioning, master plan, fundraising, feasibility, all up to this point completed. Working on the private fundraising in FY26. Hope to have construction plans in FY27 and construction to begin in FY28. I'm just going to keep moving unless there's questions. Parks master plan implementation. Again, one of the big things that was probably a change from last year, and not so much a change in dollars, but just what you saw on the CIP. You may recall last year, because the plan hadn't been completed yet, we just had one line item that just said park implementation. And we just put some dollars in. Well then, what staff had done this year was really take, okay, now that we have that plan completed, those dollars that we had marked, now putting them to specific projects. So you'll see in the CIP, and we also grouped them kind of all together so people can see all of these related to parks implementation. And so that was kind of a big change, again, not necessarily from a dollar standpoint, but more just seeing more line items, specific line items about specific parks and not just one general. So you'll see all of those, number 57 through 70. Really the timing is over the 5 years in the CIP. For a total project cost of $6 million. GO would be funding $2.6 million of that. We also have funds from our cell tower lease that we receive and that we've been reserving for park projects. I mentioned about the emergency reserve at goal setting, taking that and allocating that to the specialty park part of this implementation. You may recall last year when we had some general fund savings, you voted that you wanted to have 300,000 of those general fund savings go for a parks project. So those are included in here as well, that 300,000. Some gaming funds, private donations, and then just some other, whether it's hotel, motel, federal and state, softball, player fund. We know, I think with gaming is that our hope is still to apply for some gaming funds, but we also know gaming's probably interested in what are maybe the unique parts of a parks project. So we know in planning for those, we'll have to kind of think about if there's some unique or something that's maybe more towards how would we get visitors here, really kind of focusing on that when we would apply for gaming dollars. Indoor turf complex, number 79 and 80. So this is really based on the sports destination assessment and the recommendation about serving a need for an indoor turf complex for this area. Do want to look at a public-private partnership. And so you will see there's in the CIP are funds for a feasibility study and then a conceptual site plan for 26-27. And then the actual complex would be mostly private funded. So that's what you'll see in the timing, the 26 through 29. Again, a really big project cost of 17 million, but the hope would be is most of that would be through a private funding opportunity. So I think now staff's really, already started in terms of meeting with local organizations. They've been touring some other Iowa tournament facilities and then starting to figure out about meeting with some developers about who might be interested in this project. Kind of more to some infrastructure items. So 109 sewer extension Dry Run Creek Phase 1, timing of 26. So hope to get the complete the design and the bid by May of 2026 with construction then during 2026. So it is the extension of sanitary sewer to promote future development and provide sanitary sewer access to that area there. And you'll see that it's mainly funded through our sewer bonds or sewer fund. Annual alley reconstruction program. It is an annual thing on the CIP with a total of 2.1 million with street construction funds and stormwater funds. This really is to reconstruct alleys, whether it's permeable or concrete each year in residential and commercial areas. Obviously, we look at some of the permeable and using stormwater funds to help treat stormwater runoff, which improves water quality in our streams. And then we also know from a funding, we can, if there does happen to be alleys in downtown, we could use TIF dollars for that as well. And then engineering does have, kind of a plan about what they look to planning on doing each year for alleys. Number 142 is the annual street repair program. So this is a lot of people know about. We've had local option sales tax here that goes currently 100% towards street resurfacing and reconstruction. So that's why you see it annually on the CIP for a total cost of $34.4 million. And it does use local option sales tax or lost, general obligation funding, and utility funding. Right now, we do get about $7 million a year for our local option sales tax. Why we also always budget some general obligation is whether it relates to right-of-way acquisition that might have to go with that street. It might also be for an amenity, like if while we're doing the street, we're going to do some other things that don't fall under the criteria for local option sales tax. That's why we always budget some GO funding as well. Also, we'll budget some of the utility stuff because, again, as you have that street tore up, is that when you maybe are going to, fix the sewer, stormwater, or anything else underground for utilities. Number 151, Union Road, Phase 1. So this is in 2627, and it is for the West 27th Street intersection that will be converted to a roundabout. You'll see it's a total of $2.7 million, but we do have grants, a STBG grant and a CRP grant of $1.4 million, those total, to help with that, so that's good news. But again, we'll still have to use some general obligation funds and some local option sales tax and street construction funds to also help with that project. I think the hope is to have a project letting here in the fall of 2026 with construction in 2027. Number 203, replacement of aerial truck. I mentioned this a little bit earlier. So as you can see, for a fire truck, it is $2.1 million, and oftentimes there's a 3-year build time on them, so we also have to plan for them ahead of time. And for instance, like the truck that we're hoping to have here in FY28, we've already actually made one payment of $800,000 on that. We have to make 3 payments kind of over the life of the build. So again, we always kind of have to plan for those accordingly. And then you'll just see the very next item, number 204, is actually then the next truck that's kind of on their 30-year cycle. They kind of try to have a 30-year cycle of those. And so you'll see rescue pumpers, kind of the next one we got to start looking at. And then lastly, number 210, nutrient reduction improvement. I think, even though I think we feel like we say this and talk about it every year, I always feel like we'd be remiss not to mention it when it's the biggest project dollar amount on the CIP. I always feel like we probably should at least mention it every year. So I know people are like, yeah, I hear about this all the time. But again, it is our improvements to our water reclamation facility that will address current EPA and DNR nutrient reduction requirements. As the council knows, you've approved the design contract for $11 million is what we've borrowed under or can borrow up on our SRF loan, and we did get a no interest loan for that for the design contract. Sounds like the design will take 18 to 24 months. Hope for a bid letting in fall of 2027 with construction completion in 2031. So you will see on the CIP the total of $166 million, which is mainly coming out of sewer funds, and then we'll be issuing bonds for that. Now we've tried to start saving up for this project in terms of our sewer rates, but we do know it will have an impact, continue to have an impact on sewer rates for our residents and businesses. And we also, and we talked about this a little bit at goal setting, is it could affect our debt capacity if we choose to sell general obligation bonds instead to maybe get a lower rate than what revenue bonds would be. So when I talked earlier that we're only using 7%, well, that could change, but that's also a change. I mean, it could be a good change that we're doing that for a reason to do that. If it can be, because when you talk about 166 million and you talk about if there's like a 1% change, lower interest rate, I mean, that's significant on 166 million. So it may be worth us for us to do that. So really that's just highlight. Really next step is just this presentation tonight. We'll also set the formal public hearing for the next council meeting on January 20th. But this is the time if there's projects that council wants to talk about, wants to know more about, wants to change, delete, we can sure talk about those tonight or go through any of that. And then obviously the final thing we would be looking for is just a motion to recommend either the CIP as presented or as amended to City Council for that public hearing at the next council meeting. So with that, I will stop and see if there's any questions.
Thank you, Jen. And I'll open up the comments. Just a reminder, process-wise, we do the CIP, and then once we approve that CIP, we'll go and build the budget, knowing we'll bring back what it would look like if we did everything, and then we probably won't do everything, and we'll have to decide not to do some things. So even once we approve this, there's still that next level of actually figuring out what makes the budget. So at this point, it's really just giving us direction to start building out what that budget looks like for the year, and with that, I'll open it up.
As always, you're excellent, Jennifer. We maybe talked about this before, and maybe it's a question for Craig, or I don't think John is here. Is there an aftermarket spot for the trucks we have?
Sure. You want to go ahead? Okay.
I can answer that. So really, this is what, information from Brian Heath and the professionals out at Public Works, but there is. So our platform truck will be 30 years old, but I believe the estimate that they thought we'd get for it between 90 and 150,000 for that platform, and that'll be 30 years old. Then there's a pumper coming up that'll be 27 years old, and there'll be some resale on that. When we do that next pumper, which isn't until FY31, we're going to combine two trucks, a heavy rescue truck and a pumper. We're going to get rid of two trucks and sell them, or sell our oldest pumper, sell the heavy rescue, and then replace them with one truck too. So there's going to be some future savings for that. So.
Is that in consideration when we start thinking about the second station?
Yeah, well, really, the equipment that we have at 18th and Main right now will just move up to our second station. So everything stays the same. But as the years have went through, the old hydraulic tools, the old jaws of life, as you would hear, we now have those battery powered on all of our trucks. There's been technology advances. So the need for a big heavy rescue truck for a city our size, we can put a lot of those things in a trailer and get it to the scene of something big. Because now on all of our rescue pumpers, when we get this next one in FY31, they're just very well equipped. They all have rescue tools. They all have jacks. They all have equipment that we need. That used to come in one big truck.
Thanks, Craig.
Thanks, Counselor. Yeah, go ahead.
I just have a couple questions
Sure.
that we probably didn't go through in goal setting,
Sure.
but they just came up tonight. That sewer extension on University Avenue, and I don't need the nuts and bolts of it. Is there water service out there to the horseshoe area? Do you know?
Not to my knowledge, but I can confirm that.
Is that would the water service be part of that extension or not?
No,
Probably
just
not.
sewer.
Okay. Sounds good. And then asphalt or not redoing alleys, do we still apply for DNR money to do any of that, or is that kind of past the time to do that?
Well, go ahead, Chase. I know a lot of that's kind of, we
Yep,
haven't been able to, I mean, I think a lot of those
say-
funds aren't as available as they used to be.
Correct.
Yeah.
I would say 5 years ago, there was a lot more opportunity at those funds, but I think a lot of communities are implementing a similar type of program, so there's less dollars to go around right now. So,
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other thoughts, questions, discussion? I know, quick, Jen, I did have one question. The microtransit for the public transportation, for that transit levy, are those numbers just our existing transit levy?
No,
Or is
I think those
that
are the
additional?
amount, a year ago, that Med had provided to us of what they thought transit, those costs could be. And so we put the transit levy knowing that, I think, probably have more of these discussions when they come
Yep.
and present, but really it's, okay, is that taking our current transit levy and moving it to the microtransit? Is there going potentially be a year where there could be a double amount in there, kind of, but I don't know if you have anything else you want to add to that.
Yeah, so I think the short of it is what's in the CIP is what would be additionally
Okay.
needed for microtransit based on estimate we had from VIA at the time.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. That's what I wanted to check. And for those, if you remember a goal setting we did talk about, we're working with Met to look at microtransit options instead of just the fixed route bus system. So if you see in the CIP item 46, that would be additional funding then that may be needed to transition to a microtransit model like that. Again, that's why it's future projected. Right now, we're not planning anything specific, but. And then the other item, 79 for the indoor turf complex. I know we've got the 673,000 in there. Is that just for planning ahead if the project were to move forward after we do the design and we find maybe a developer interested? I know it's in next year's budget, so I was guessing that amount's just for if the project did end up moving forward. Item 79.
I don't know what page of the details sheet is that would tell us, but it might actually be for design, to move into architectural design of
Okay.
trying to get bid documents prepared, for example, if it moves forward.
Okay, thank you. I'll pull that up before.
Yep, and because I think the actual like construction of one was in like 28 and 29. So we show like some of the actual feasibility studies, and that is number 80. For some of the feasibility study, we kind of show some dollars in 26 and 27. And then I think what you're asking about, Mayor, is really some of that 27. Is that also, would that be to develop those design?
Yep.
Yeah.
And I can look at that in the detail. Otherwise, any other questions, comments, thoughts from council?
So I don't forget, I did want to thank Stacy's here, who does a lot in finance on the project, but also just really a shout out to a lot of staff in other departments that put a lot of work into the CIP. I know Ben and engineering does a lot, but again, I know whether it's planning or Jamie in building, Brian and O&M, there's a lot of people from departments help kind of put it all together. So I just want to say thanks for that.
Thank you, Jen, and the whole team. And otherwise, if nothing else from council, since we are going to motion to approve moving this forward, we'll open it up to public comment. So any other thoughts from council? All right, seeing none, then any thoughts from the public on the CIP? Didn't know if we had anybody outside either. All right, seeing none, then we'll bring it back. Then just motion to, well, we'll let one of you motion.
I'll move to approve the CIP.
Second.
Motion second, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carries.
Okay.
And otherwise, that wraps us up for Committee of the Whole. So thank you, Jen and team, again for all the information. And we will be back here at 7 o'clock. We got some time. Anybody else want? Just kidding, we can't talk about anything else. But. All right, well, I'll call this meeting adjourned, and we'll be back here at 7 o'clock for the regularly scheduled city council meetings. Thank you, everyone.